Welcome to another weekly episode of Marked Out Radio. I'm Sean.
And I'm Dana.
And on this episode, we have a very special interview with Tom Unger, who's the promoter of Big Event New York. And stick around for our interview with Tom right after these words. So if you're shopping for autographs, check out www.markedoutcollectibles.com or our eBay store at Marked Out Collectibles. To contact us for any reason, please email markedoutcollectibles@gmail.com or join the Marked Out Collectibles official marketplace on Facebook. All links are in the show notes on Facebook and Substack. And if you want your event, product, or brand advertised on episodes of Marked Out Radio, reach out to us today at markedoutcollectibles@gmail.com. Also, please subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcast and leave a rating or review. You can leave a rating or review on Apple Podcast, you can leave a rating on Spotify, or you can leave thumbs up, thumbs down, or a comment on YouTube. So without further ado, our friend Tom Unger. How you doing,
Tom?
How are you? Thanks for having me.
Not a problem at all.
On.
Yeah, it's we're long-time customers, so love what you put out there. So I guess we'll just jump right in. What's your personal history with autograph collecting? Is this like something that are you a collector, or did you kind of jump into this hobby with your eye on business from the beginning?
I was a collector as a kid, chasing and collecting baseball cards. And, I would set up at shows at 12, 13 selling cards. And then I was always a collector of autographs. And then I opened up an ice cream place and somebody brought in a wrestler and we did a couple of signings from there. And I kept doing them, at the ice cream place. And then I could do this on my own. And it just went from there. It was crazy.
So is that kind of how you got started in the con business, basically? Was it kind of snowballed from one booking to all of a sudden you're where you are now?
Pretty much. I was doing like one signing a month at this ice cream place. And then we closed down and I continued doing it. And then I started a show and it just snowballed from there.
There you go. So, Tom, we have a question from a listener, Marquine from Chile. He writes that him and his friends from Chile attended your show in 2021, and they had a great time meeting a whole bunch of stars. And his question is, what is the biggest problem you've had to deal with since you started running shows again after the pandemic?
The biggest problem since the pandemic. And actually, it helped after the pandemic. People were spending money, and We only took one show off in the pandemic. I ran during the pandemic, which was I was only allowed to bring like 300 people in, and we had the space every 6 feet and everything. So I only took one show off. But the hobby actually increased. The pandemic helped the hobby, I think, anyway, because people were home and they were spending money on their house and the collecting and all that stuff. But I think it increased since the pandemic. I mean, it's starting to level out now, but I think it increased since the pandemic.
Yeah, I agree.
So we asked the same question when we talked to Ken and Terrence. When you're putting together a show like Big Event now, because when I originally asked Ken and Terrence, the context for the question was because were you involved, or did you know about those guys when they were running shows in like the early 2000s with the super tickets and stuff like that?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I attended the Legends of the Ring. I actually Legends of the Ring.
So your show, you really didn't run. I mean, I think you really don't run super ticket kind of based shows. And so what's I same thing of like Ken and Terrence and stuff about their philosophy when booking talent for a show like this. Do you kind of have a budget in mind and then map out what you want to do, or do you kind of like survey the field and see what talent are available and kind of build out your roster from there?
I really don't have a budget. I mean, that's the actually good thing about me is that I try to get guests that I'm not saying other people can't afford. It's just I put out a big number to the guests and, guarantee a certain amount of pieces. And, I'm selling a lot on the back end where I get guests like Stacy, Keibler, Paul Heyman. These guys, they're getting six figures, and if you do the math, if you only have 5 hours and you made $100 a minute, you only bring it in, $30,000. So there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of stuff, getting sold on the back end, wholesale deals to other people to cover this, large amount that I'm laying out to bring into my show.
Right. So you're really not thinking about the for lack of a better word, the gate. The gate is less important than the than
Well,
the
I'd rather
total
bring,
package.
like if you bring a Stacy Keibler and it brings 1,000 people through the door, and they're paying $30 to get in, that's money that you could absorb a loss, that way when you're running your own show.
Yeah.
So then, I mean, your shows kind of differentiated themselves from the other shows because for a long time you had active WWE talent at your shows via Fitterman. So, I mean, how did that relationship come about that led you to have active talent on the shows? Like, what were the politics of that like?
Well, me and him have a good business relationship. I supported him at his show, and he supported me, and that's pretty much it. And he knew that my show did very good numbers, that he would do very well. So he always supported my show.
And there was no pushback. I know, like years ago, WWE would have like certain rules about like their active talent being at shows with other companies.
Oh yeah, no, they fight. I mean, I had WWE talent on my own. I had like Braun Strowman. He had to be in a separate room. He couldn't be advertised with all the talent. He couldn't be advertised. He had to be separated. I had Paul Heyman at the last one. I had to like close in where he wasn't. He never left. Like no one saw him walking the floor. I had to separate him, from everybody else.
So they still do all that red tape stuff as far as just making it a little difficult.
And some of the guys have different contracts where you're able to, work around through their movie agents and everything. So you got to really, look around to see, who's available and how you could get it done.
It's funny because we had Sandman at the show with Rhea Ripley. And he was obsessed the entire time with trying to get near Rhea Ripley.
Yeah.
And it was a constant, like, come on, find me, get me, come on, I want to talk to Rhea Ripley. So that was my struggle at that show. Was trying to
Listen, you got it done. You got it done for Hack.
Trying to wrangle him away from Rhea Ripley because
when we had a walkthrough, with Paul the day before, and he's friends with everybody in the business, somehow, some way, he's been in business, as long as anybody. And he just said that, I want to see all these, other wrestlers, but no one could come, see me. I'm here for the fans. And I respected that because, when the wrestlers come in, it's, I haven't seen you. It takes away, 20 minutes away from the fans, and you got, long line, you're waiting, and, they're reuniting. So he didn't want any part of seeing the other wrestlers at the show. He just was there to, see the fans, and we got through it,
Yeah, well, I imagine though, from his perspective, I mean, and this is not meant to talk bad about anybody, but I imagine so many of these guys would try and like angle him for opportunities and things like that too. So it's just one of those things that it's probably best to,
He brought like a security team, like 10 guys to make sure that he was there for the fans, which was great. So, and everybody's quite happy.
Yeah, especially with the you were saying he's like, you're talking 6-figure deals, how much each minute is worth. I mean, you end up having a 10-minute conversation with RVD or something, and your minutes are burning up. So
yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you do a 6-hour deal, you figure 360 minutes, one per minute. If you could do that, and you add that into 6 figures, you're paying $300 a minute. So that conversation with RVD, it costs you, $3,000, in your pocket, and that's how you look at it, So it's very stressful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So with the whole WWE move away from Fitterman towards Fanatics, has that had any impact on your business?
No, I mean, this show, I happened to get a lot of rare names, and I have an NXT girl coming in, and Titus O'Neil, he's contracted with WWE. So, we have a solid lineup. I mean, I'd like to get to the WWE. You can get to the WWE talent, but they make it very difficult.
I would say Fanatics, I imagine, is very interested now in lining their pockets first. Right? It's a little bit of a different angle.
Like I'm in a little predicament I have the Bella Twins exclusively. So I had them at Steel City Comic-Con, and I had them going to WrestleCon. And, we were all ready to go. Nikki gets signed with the WWE. Bree doesn't. They tell me I can't do shows. So they're going to do Access at WrestleMania, and they're going to do a Fan Fest in June. Meanwhile, the Bree is going to do it, and she's not contracted. So that, so it's very tricky, So I'm going to take them back over when in June, but that Nikki, I'm not able to do anything with Nikki right now while she's contracted with the WWE.
Yeah, that definitely complicates things.
Yeah.
So it seems like in recent years, you've kind of taken over the mantle. You've been responsible for booking a lot of the headliners for Chiller Theatre. How did your relationship with Chiller start?
I would go to Chiller Theatre, and then I enjoyed it. And then, I booked like, lower end talent, and they had me in the vending room. I had Dustin Diamond. I had Dustin Diamond at the time. And then it just, I just, got better guests each year. And, I just started bringing in all the headliners into Chiller. Go ahead.
Sorry.
No, Chiller's a good show. A lot, there's a lot of autograph collectors. They come and they spend a lot of money. They're really into it. They have a really good following, Chiller Theatre.
But for a while, they were, let's just be very direct. They were kind of for several shows in a row where they were relying on you to put bodies in the building.
Yeah.
Let's call it what it is. You were booking the top of all the big names were yours, and then everything else was, the low end TV.
My business model is different. It's I take a risk. All 99% of the vendors, the agents in Chiller, I call them the 10%ers. They go in, and if they do $30,000, they take their $3,000. The show picks up the flight, picks up the room, gives a per diem. They're happy. They made $3,000. I'm laying out $500,000. You get a bomb scare, and I'm outside for 4 hours. You see me running around like sweating like I ran a marathon, and the other guys are taking selfies out in the parking lot because I have all this money on the line. So right. The reason I get the big talent is because I'm laying out the guaranteed money. These other people, the other agents. I'm not saying anything. It's great the way they do it, but I need to get stuff signed. They don't walk away with signed memorabilia. I'm selling stuff signed, so I just have a different business model.
Right. Yeah, that's something that's really interesting about the whole Chiller thing is that, and then again, I don't mean to be insulting towards people, but a lot of the 10%ers, again, let's be very honest, are really not walking into that show expecting or really hoping to make any money. They're deriving, I guess, some kind of pleasure sitting next to the person for the weekend, and if they make a couple bucks,
they go. That's their job. They go around, week to week. You bring in $100,000 in talent, and you get 10%. It's $10,000. It's a good payday for a weekend. So it's not bad. I know a lot of agents, great guys. That's what they do, but they just don't take. They will never lay out. They don't lay out any of their money. Right. I'm taking a risk. A risk or a reward, or I take a risk and take a loss.
So speaking of risks. There was a recent pretty public spat between you and Chiller about Mickey Rourke. If I'm being just my own personal opinion, is that what they posted on their Facebook was unfair about you. But for the sake of everyone listening, can you walk us through the decision to book Mickey, what that process entailed, and kind of how it all went down?
Well, people book people they'll book them through Instagram or whatever, and I have a pretty I have a whole legal team that puts together contracts for me. I don't just say I'm bringing in Mickey Rourke. So we went through his talent agency, who was a very reputable company. I had to make a video. I sent a large amount as a deposit. And everything was good until like 10 days before, and he sent me a crazy demand letter that he wasn't going to do, what we agreed upon. And, I just tried to make it work, and I couldn't do it. But, and then, it's not, I wound up getting my money back just recently, but it took a year. I had to get lawyers involved and, all kinds of money spent to get it back.
Wow. You gotta wonder. Do you gotta start putting deposits in escrow or something like that to avoid that? That's
some people do. So a lot of these people, you got to wire them the money, like half up front to announce.
Yeah.
The people that I was looking through, there was no way that I didn't think he wasn't coming. He wound up, breaching the contract, which made the agency look really bad. So I had to go after the agency to get my money back, and I did. So
why do you think? I mean, why do you think Chiller then took it out, for lack of a better word, took it out on you as opposed to? Because I mean, look, everyone to some degree knew that reaching out and booking Mickey Rourke was somewhat of a risk, right? There was an incident in the past where he stole money from a private signing. All that, this stuff, people know this information that's been going around, so they knew that you were taking a risk. They knew you were kind of laying out money. So how did that kind of come about then, where they would kind of thrust the blame on you when they put them on the website? They knew what was up,
Yeah, no, I mean, they got so much backlash, and then they took it out on me, but I didn't just make it. I mean, there's a video stating, the guy's, talking, I'll be at Chiller Theatre.
We saw him.
So I mean, I believe everybody was messaging me. He's not coming. I'm like, okay. But he didn't come, and I figured for sure he was coming. The deal that I had, but that was all on him.
And besides the obvious, which is just his history of unpredictability, let's just put it nicely. Do you have any idea, like why from his level, like he backed out of everything he agreed to? Did he give any sort of indication, to try to justify it?
No, he did. He just sent some crazy demand letter that he was only going to sign one photo, wasn't going to take photo ops with customers. He wanted a stationary bike in his room, and then he wanted to stay in Manhattan. I mean, just like he wanted $10,000 per diem. None of this was agreed upon. It was the last, it was a week before that I got this crazy, email, and he just didn't want to do it. He just didn't want to do it.
I'm saying at that point, you're just looking for a reason to get out of it when you're making those kind of demands.
And supposedly he needs the money, so I'm actually shocked that he didn't. But
it was kind of the same deal in a way with, Randy Quaid, right? Is that he ripped people off, and it was they received insane messages. He wouldn't get on the plane. He was hiding from the police in the woods, blah blah blah, all this stuff. And then something, and now he does shows. So you never really know what it is that's going to drag one of these guys out of the house.
In this business, you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I have all these contracts and everything, but if the talent doesn't want to get on the plane, and it's nothing you could do, and then you got to fight it out in court and try to get your money back a year later.
And it's funny because we've talked about this on another episode, but a lot of fans really don't understand that. They say, well, don't they have a contract? The only thing a contract is good for is it's good for suing somebody over. So you got to be willing to go to court, or else the contract's not worth anything. That's a whole.
If you have a contract for $50,000, it could cost you $50,000 in lawyers to go out to to LA, and that's where they live and fight, and they know that. So the contracts is basically a form of itinerary, but if they don't get on the plane, you gotta, it's all on the talent.
Yeah. So after discussing, we talked about the whole Chiller message that they made blaming you for Mickey unfairly. What is your current relationship with Chiller?
Well, I'm going to Kuwait with Big Show the weekend of Chiller, so kind of took a break. It's fine. I'd like to do it again. It's just the last one was difficult, with what they wrote, and to be honest, I had David Hasselhoff booked, and the show didn't want him, and it took me 3 months to get this deal done, and they didn't want him. So
why would you not want Hasselhoff?
I don't know. He didn't want to pick up the flights. He didn't want to do it. So I put out this whole, crazy thing, biggest guest and this, and they didn't let me bring him. And I was, when you spend that much time on something and then it doesn't come through, it's very frustrating.
We've heard lore, we've heard legend that Kevin over at Chiller is pretty, you could say, arbitrary as to what he wants on his shows and what he doesn't. Sometimes people kind of can't figure it out.
What he likes. I try. He's a good guy. I try to. If he doesn't like the guests, like he doesn't know about, he doesn't want them there. Like I had Kid and Play, and I'm like, Kevin, Kid and Play, just have a Funko come out. They're gonna do really well. He's like, I don't know. I don't want them there. I had to talk him out. So like, I didn't get any flights or any rooms. I had to lay that out. But he's old school. He knows what he knows. He's successful at what he does. It's just, you got to, try to talk him into bringing in some of the newer guests. I mean, I look for rare guests. I look for guests that haven't been all around,
I think that's honestly your calling card at this point. I mean, you got, Robert Eiler, you've gotten all these people out that no one ever really expected. I know I didn't expect.
I even messaged you, Dana. I was like, how do you think Robert Eiler, or how do you think Jamlin Sigler would do? Because sometimes I don't know, like they haven't been around. Is there a reason they haven't been around? Does nobody care? Or do people want them? So I got to do my research too. I messaged Dana. I said, how do you think Robert Eiler would do? And
that was one of those times that I was trying to be as impartial as possible, because I really wanted him. So it's like I wasn't going to send you down a bad path, as far as my opinion. And I hope he did well for you. And
he did great. He did great.
It seemed like when I was getting him, the crowd was good.
Yeah, I mean, when there's somebody like that and hasn't been around, and that's people got to complete soprano pieces and stuff. So him and Jamie did really well. And Drea too, but Drea's been around.
Yeah, Drea, she's a pro.
Yeah,
she's of these things.
So, as a question I've never asked on this podcast, and I'll probably never ask again, how did you end up getting booked to go to Kuwait?
This Quantum Con reached out to me, and they wanted a big show. So they threw a crazy number at him, and we're going to Kuwait. So he's like the headline. I booked him in Bahrain last year, and they go crazy over big show overseas, and he did really well. So he's friends with this owner of this Quantum Con. So we're going out to Kuwait.
I got to imagine for him to get on a flight to Kuwait, just the flight logistics have got to be a little bit challenging and expensive.
$23,000 for a first class flight. There's only two seats. I mean, the guy's 7 foot. He's 400 or 500 pounds. And then we're on a flight for 21 hours. So
he's not squeezing in coach.
He's not squeezing in business class too. I didn't even. I found that out the hard way. I thought business class was the same as first class, and with him, it's not.
And so you're along for the ride on that one then too.
Yeah, we're going. I don't know how I'm going to be on a plane that long, but I'm going to figure it out.
I will say though, in my experience with traveling to the Middle East, which I have, they treat you pretty well on the plane. There's a lot of meals. The meals are better than they would be on domestic or even European flights. So they treat you pretty good on these flights.
I never been over there, so we'll see how it goes.
So you'd been talking about that, you were because at Legends of the Ring or at Chiller, you function as a vendor, and obviously at big event, you're the promoter. So can you touch on or expand on kind of the relationship between vendors and promoters? As someone who just happens to do both,
with relationships with other promoters?
No, just because you're a vendor in certain contexts, you're a promoter in other contexts, and I know that when you're promoting big event, right? You sort of look at and think about your vendors in a particular way, and then when you're at Chiller, you're at a vendor, and then you have to kind of take the promoter hat off in some ways, because Kevin has to run his show, basically.
Running a show, there's so many moving parts. It's just it's so much different than being a vendor. It's running a show is. I'm already working on November. And because you got to get a jump on it, because if you don't, you're not going to get this talent. So running a show is just there's so many moving parts on running a show. Vending is pretty easy. It's for the most part. The show does a lot of, picking up, dropping off of the talent. It's all you got to do is really set up. But running a show is just totally different. And especially I've been getting into these other Comic-Cons like Steel City, and I went out to Salt Lake. I had Danny Glover out there. They do everything. For all you got to do is they even have people running your table. It's all you got to do is really show up. Like Kuwait, I don't have to do anything but just be there. They do everything. Oh. And
then we got to be careful using the word vendor, because when you were at Legends of the Ring, you paid them for a table. But if you're bringing, I imagine, and I don't know how you do your deals with Chiller, but I imagine by this point you're not paying for a table at Chiller. You're
No.
providing them. You're providing them with thousands of dollars worth of tickets to do the front door. And I imagine it's similar in a Steel City kind of situation as well. And so there is a certain I don't even know what you'd even call it, what your relationship is at Chiller. You're not really a vendor, but you're kind of you're not in that. You're, I guess, an agent, right? In that capacity.
Yeah, an agent.
Yeah. So you mentioned all the different moving parts as far as running a show, and I've seen you on days of the show running. Always you're moving 1,000,000 miles an hour. But it seems like the last couple shows, the one thing you haven't really been worrying about is a location. It feels like the Brentwood location's been working pretty well at Suffolk Community College. Do you feel like this is your permanent spot?
Yeah, I signed a 5-year deal with them. I'm there for at least 5 years, and no other show could get in there. So I had to sign a 5-year contract. With them, no other autograph show could get in there. So, but. The show, it's further out. People complain about Queens, but I just couldn't take, the people standing outside for hours and hours waiting to get into the show. For the most part, we get everybody in an hour, like you said, everybody's in. There's enough space for everybody to move around and be comfortable. And I hated being at the hotel. When people are online and they don't see the destination of where they're going, it's it just gets so frustrating for the customer and for me too. They don't know what's going on. People standing in line. They have friends waiting in line while they're going around running and getting other stuff. It just really works. I have a really big back room, big parking lot. It's 100,000 square feet. We're talking about doing a wrestling show in the middle there. I have a basketball court in there that I don't even use. That's the size. It's the full basketball court. So we're going to want to put a wrestling ring in there and running a wrestling show at night. So that will be in November. Yeah.
Yeah. There's just a difference in terms of scope and scale between running a hotel con and a convention center con, right? That's kind of what, because
I like the hotel setup because all the talent's right there. You just go up to the room, you bring them down, and it's convenient for me, but it's not convenient for the customer. Because it's not enough space, and then the hotel fights you on everything. You're blocking the entrance of the hotel, or people standing here, and it's not the last one was my final straw, and everybody was complaining. They were outside for 4 or 5 hours, and rightfully so. I listened to them, and I went all around Queens. I couldn't find nothing big enough, so I went out in Long Island, and God bless, I found this spot, and. So we're gonna stay there for 5 years.
It's tough working with hotels. I remember years and years ago, because I've been going to Monster Mania Con since 2007. And years and years and years ago, I went to a Monster Mania Con back when they were not as big as they are now, and they didn't use the full pavilion. And I'm not even joking. They let someone book the pavilion for their wedding while the con was running in the main hotel. And I feel so bad. These hotels, that's what their business is, right? Literally trying to cram as much happening at the same time. I just can't imagine what these poor people had to deal with for their wedding, seeing that.
That's the hell of a conflict.
We've had it happen where they had, some kind of gather or something, going on at the same time. And it's just hotel cons, they're good for, like you said, they're good for the talent. They're good for the vendors. Because the talent's right there, they don't have to go pick them up. But for the customer, it's brutal, and especially a show of my size when you're getting 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people. The occupancy in the hotel was only 700, and I would have 3,000 people coming there. So it was.
You just outgrew it, basically.
Yeah, no, we outgrew it, and we definitely did. And I don't know how I'm going to top the next one, but we keep getting some rare guests. So I'm trying to branch out where I bring in celebrities and sports athletes and UFC. So that seems to be working. I want to, I don't have as much this show because we went heavy on with the wrestling. It's a wrestling show, but the last one I had William Shatner and he didn't do so great. So I was, everybody's coming there for wrestling. It's known as a wrestling show.
Yeah, especially when you have someone like Shatner, who there's a certain barrier to entry. Wrestling show, someone would, for lack of a better word, who doesn't have a lot of cash in their pocket, can find someone to take a picture with for $20. You know,
Yeah.
With a guy like Shatner, you're not getting near him, and I think that's so you're kind of limiting.
Yeah, like I had
to the people who are
Shatner at
willing to spend
Chiller
money.
Theatre, and the line wrapped around the building, and then I had him
Right.
at my show, and he was, I mean, he did a tenth of what he did at Chiller Theatre. So it's these they want to they want the $20-$30 guests. I try to price it right, for the bigger guests and everything to keep it reasonable. So it seems to be working. I'm happy with my location, so it's been good.
Yeah. So we've noticed that you're continuing to build this roster of exclusive stars. So what do those relationships look like, and why do you think they choose to work with you over some of the many alternatives out there?
Well, they know I have 2 shows a year, so I could always use them, and I have a good relationship with WrestleCade, and I've been getting in a lot of the Comic-Cons, and the Comic-Cons are ones that really can afford these wrestlers rather than some of the wrestling shows. So they know they're gonna get what they want, and I guarantee them 5-6 appearances a year, and I could do that. The minute that I sign them, I could get 5-6 appearances for them right off the bat. So it's a good thing.
So it's just a matter of that you're going to promise them 5 or 6 like high value appearances, so then this way they don't have to grind it out at the smaller shows, basically.
You don't want to start off at like a VFW hall. That's what I'm trying to tell them. Like you can't start you got to start off at some of the bigger shows to keep your brand going. Like the more that you do, like they see out there, bigger Comic-Cons, the more people want you to come to the next one. So I try to limit to where I bring them.
So yeah, we were talking about your ability to get guests out that no one else has been able to lure out of their house. Is it really just a matter of being willing to give a higher guarantee than other people, or is there more to it?
That's part of it, and just being persistent. Like I said, I'm already working on November, and I'm sending emails for November 15th, our next one. Before I'm even having March. Is that it's just you got to keep up with it, and constant emails and texting, and to keep up with it to make sure the date's available, and So
because you had mentioned that like you prefer to do guaranteed money over revenue splits, right? Was it a situation where you had like tried revenue splits in the past and it didn't work for you, or is your kind of psychological motivation here just like, if I'm going to do this, I want to make it worth my while, and so I'm going to do the guaranteed revenue kind of thing?
If you do a split or whatever, they're not going to sign what I need signed. So like. My business is selling autographs, so I have like wholesalers that buy off me, so I need to get a certain amount of stuff signed. And if you do, a split, they're not going to sign that, so I rather buy out, get the merchandise so I'm able to resell.
So your deal's usually structured in terms of amount of time, number of pieces, or some combination thereof?
They're all different. Usually, the bigger guests that it's like a unit count, like, you get 4,000 units, 5,000 units, a photo op being a unit, an autograph being a unit. And then whatever they don't do to the public, they got to sign in the back end. Some of them, a lot of deals I do 4 hours public, 1 hour private, and, they sign for an hour and whatever you get. Some people are very fast, some people are very slow. It all varies.
It can't kind of, because you're kind of mixed up in this too, it can't have passed you by that there's a lot more, especially in wrestling, there's a lot more wrestlers who have agents nowadays than there used to be. You could send a text to whoever and you would just book them on the spot. Nowadays, especially with the new releases, everyone has an agent, and that kind of changes the calculus a little bit. How has this affected like the attitudes of guests, your ease of dealing with them? Have you run into issues with this? What are your thoughts on all the wrestlers having agents now?
No, it makes it difficult. I'd rather deal with the with the talent direct, because a lot of the times the agents don't relay some of the things, and they could get in the way, and so I rather deal with the talent direct. But for the most part, the bigger ones always have an agent, so it makes it challenging.
I heard a rumor. Actually, Dana, you heard this rumor that apparently some of the smaller, we're talking smaller, like $2,000 guests here, $2,000 guests are showing up at signings with those little baseball clickers. to keep track of their pieces.
Yeah, I heard that recently. Just clicking away to make sure that their counts are exactly right.
But a particular agent is doing this.
I don't know what happened to me.
And it's one of those things, just kind of.
Some of those counts are wrong, not so accurate sometimes too.
Yeah, have you experienced certain guests where they're reluctant to sign the extras because they don't want to drive down their value, or like they try and give you a hard time about extras?
All the time, And I try to be fair. It's if you're booking a $2,000 guest and you want them to sign 500 pieces, I mean, it's kind of, I try to be fair, and that's why I feel I get the guests, because I make it worth their while, and I pay them what they should get paid. So that's why I have a good relationship with a lot of the wrestlers, a lot of the actors and celebrities.
Speaking of, what's your wildest or most interesting story when dealing with a guest?
Wildest story. Wow, that's a good one. I used to run around with the Sons of Anarchy while the Sons of Anarchy was going on, and those guys would just party all night long, and it would they never went to bed. Yeah, they thought they were the Rolling Stones. It was crazy. We'd go to a show and they would just party all night long. Rhode Island Comic Con, or we went out to L.A. We went to Florida. Tommy Flanagan, the guy, he wouldn't stop drinking all day and night.
I think I was at one of your Tommy Flanagan events. You had him at City Field at that bar. I forget what it's called.
Yeah,
in City Field, and he was cool as shit. But I mean, he was completely loaded. Drunk
loaded. They was literally just chasing this guy around, and it's just. I rode that wave out when we had Sons of Anarchy while it was, while the show was on, and I had most of the talent, and those guys. Well, Tommy Flanagan the most. He was something else.
So, which guest, if you could think about your all-time, I guess you will call your biggest financial success, where you did way better than you had thought, or maybe you exceeded your expectations, or which guest was your biggest financial success?
I had Hulk Hogan. I had Hulk Hogan before his prices were crazy. I wrestle at the Big Event 5. I paid him a tenth of what he's getting paid now, and we crushed it. We Scott Hall and Kevin Nash were there. Tried to get them together, but they were just fighting about money. So I had all three of them there. They wouldn't sit together. But Hulk Hogan at the Big Event 5 was probably my biggest money maker.
All right, so we can finally ask this question: who was the sticking point? Who was the obstacle that prevented that all-time legendary photo op from happening?
I had it. I had it down to the week before, and they wanted to get paid when Hogan was getting paid, and Kevin Nash was the one that it was just he wanted what Hogan was getting paid. Hall was easy. It was Nash just was if he's getting paid that, we're never going to do it unless I get paid that, and we just couldn't make it work.
Did you ever say to yourself, you know what, screw it, I'll charge $500 for the just so the people who want to pay can get it done?
If it was me now, yes, but back when I just started, you're going from paying somebody $2,000 to paying them $25,000 to make a photo op. It seemed crazy at the time. Now I probably would have went for it, but back then I was very unsure.
So on the flip side of this, which guests did you expect to do well who didn't? I guess you call them your biggest flop.
That's a good one. I don't really know. I don't know. Actually,
because you had mentioned that Shatner, I guess in Brentwood, wouldn't do as great as he would do elsewhere because of it was a wrestling.
Actually, I paid Frankie Avalon a lot of money for Chiller Theatre. Never done a show, and paid him a lot, and he really didn't draw like I thought he was gonna. So that's probably him.
That's I didn't realize that was that because that seems like he would draw for that crowd.
Yeah, I would have expected him to do well.
No, he didn't. He really didn't. I paid him a lot of money because he was holding out and never did a signing ever, and he didn't really draw.
And with your model of selling on the back end, are you in a position, you think, with Frankie that you'll be able to make it work one day just with the stock you have?
Oh yeah, eventually. But you hate to have to sell your way out of deals. Like you want to be into it so low. Where you're starting to profit. Like right away. You don't have to sell for a couple of years to get to even, and then start making money.
Everybody gets a Frankie Avalon autograph for Christmas for the rest of eternity.
Yeah.
So this is a tricky one because this is the kind of a promoter's question. As a retailer and as a promoter, how do you handle when fans feel that they haven't received the experience that they paid for?
Yeah, I mean, you try to make them, where they're able to, get to talk to them, but you're also trying to, move it along because you try to get everybody in line and get everybody through. So yeah, it's, some people feel, if they buy a VIP, they think they could spend 10 minutes, with them.
Right.
A VIP is just basically you're getting to the front of the line. You're able to get in and get out. So, but for the most part, I go over with the talent, that, let us be the bad guys, let us move, let the, the talent, they don't have to, do anything, but let us do it. So, I have pretty good line control where they're able to, have a little interaction, but also move them along at the same time.
That makes sense. So,
so we've discussed this a little bit already, but honestly, the fact that you got Paul Heyman to do a convention, I just want to talk about him in particular a little bit. To get him to make this convention appearance, obviously you've detailed a little bit the big guarantee to do everything you needed to do. Were there any other just hurdles and things that he was concerned about that maybe stopped him in the past from doing things that you were able to?
Well, I had him booked 3 years ago, and it was a done deal. And then Fitterman took over the WWE contract, so he wasn't able to do it. And so that was so once that contract ended, he felt like he owed me one, which he said that, and we were able to get it done the last show.
So my at this point, I mean, I've been going to wrestling con since 07, so you're talking about 18 years basically. So I've met everyone pretty much, and so it's one of those things where to get me out to a show, there has to be something that I have never seen before, and you just keep managing to do this. And we always make a joke, it's like, what possibly could you come up with next that's going to get me out of my house? So I was, I'm not gonna lie, I approach every single show in the future I'll see. That's how I am about everything. And then you book Tenzan, and I'm like, I can't believe that, because this is the truth. I have been working on an NWO poster project for almost 2 decades, and I recently had it framed because I was finished. I didn't think there were certain guys. I didn't think Tenzan was ever going to come here. I didn't think Akira was ever going to come here, and Masa Saito. Those were the 3 who were NWO members who I didn't have. I had everyone else, NWO Sting, everyone else. And I didn't have those 3. And I'm like, so it's safe to get framed. And then you book Tenzan. I'm like, God, I can't believe it, because now I have to go take it out of the frame, get this thing done, because my psychotic compulsion is forcing me to do this. How do you even land on a guest like Tenzan? How does that happen?
Well, I just heard that he's never done anything, and I reached out to my contact, and I was supposed to bring in a bunch of them, but then I was just so over budget. But I had really, because I knew he didn't do anything, so I said let's go with him. I have a couple more booked for November 15th. But
then when you say a couple more, do you mean New Japan guys?
Yeah. They were supposed to come to this one, but then I was so over budget that I just went with him. So I have a couple more booked for the 15th.
So I think not to pry too much, but I'm thinking about Tenzan, and I imagine a decent chunk of the American fans may not know who he is. I freaked out again because it just so happens that I was at a Nitro that he was on. Whatever. You don't need my whole personal story, but I freaked out, and so I'm super excited about Tenzan. But like,
yeah, I don't really know. I'm gonna see how he does. Like, I don't know. I like the ticket sales are kind of low on him compared to the other guests because I think it's just the old school fans, whatever, that would know who he is. But I have a lot of stuff, sold to different people already where I'm in a good position.
Because I would think like, and do you ever consider like you get a guy like Tenzan, so you bring in like Kojima or Chono with him, so it like. But I don't even know the tag team kind of thing. Is that a consideration?
Yeah, I know. I was thinking about it. The flights are so expensive.
Oh yeah.
They got to stay for a couple of days, and it's just the expenses are more than the fee. It's just the flights and the hotel. It just adds up.
Yeah, well, I guess that's the problem with really that's kind of changed the economics of booking guys in general. Is that it used to be the fee was your primary calculus, and now the expenses have to be because if someone's flying out of LA or Orlando, whatever, it's easy. If someone's flying out of Oklahoma, then all of a sudden you're talking about a $10,000 flight.
I just spent $12,000 from India for Great Khalil for first class to come, for a flight. So it's crazy.
Well, listen, on the topic of New Japan, I mean, there is a certain New Japan legend that has a large amount of new figures coming out. I think they'll be out by November.
You might be able to get it signed.
Yeah, because I mean, he's already on. He's doing. I saw he's doing some European stuff now. So I imagine he'll make his way over here, which will be awesome. So I noticed you got Brett and Flair on a show like this. And it's remarkable to me because no matter how many times I've seen a Brett or a Flair at a show, they always seem to draw. So it's like, is there a ceiling on the number of times you'll have a guest like a Brett or a Flair, or do they pretty much draw so consistently that you bring them out whenever?
They draw so consistent. There's so much merchandise. Everybody, everybody thinks it could be the last time they see these guys. They're getting older. They might not come out. They just always draw. There's very few like legends like that people that 10-year-old kid and a 70-year-old man know who they are. So they just constantly draw.
It's true.
Yeah. So they just span so many generations that it's everybody. Bret Hart and Ric Flair you can bring to every show and they'll do well.
Yeah, it's funny because like I remember the first time. I think Flair did Legends of the Ring, and it was like, oh my god, this is unbelievable. And the line was around the block, and we all like frantically had to. I remember I bought like 10 autographs because I had to, just in case. That was 20 years ago. 20 years ago. Brett, the same thing. Brett, I remember seeing Brett. I forget. Oh, it was at Ringside Fest. It was in the city, Carolines, and I remember thinking, oh my god, Brett! And now Now
he says he's slowing down, but I keep seeing him advertise at all different shows. So I guess he's not.
Well, I mean, and the thing about it's very interesting because you talk about guys like Brett versus guys like Flair, right? I mean, how Flair, everyone has a Flair story. I mean, you deal a lot with High Spots. They infamously have tons of Flair stories, right? Dealing with him, is Flair now kind of easier to work with that it's through Fitterman?
Yeah, when he does all the, he brings him in. I have no dealings with Rick. I used to book him all the time, but he has them exclusively. But he does well at my show, so he brings them there, every time. So it's a great name to have on your poster, So.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's interesting because I know Brett has in recent times. I've heard nothing bad about Brett ever, pretty much from anyone. But it's interesting because there was that incident it was a month or two ago, or 3. The time starts passing, where the promoter couldn't come up with the guarantee for Brett, and he had to walk, and it was a whole fiasco. So it could be a reason why Brett is,
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah, slowing
down.
I like to give the talent their money up front, so there's just no issues. They're not worried about at the end if we're gonna, And it goes a long way, they feel more comfortable. They're not worried about, am I going to get paid at the end of the show or any of that. So, I just pay them up front. Sometimes for 99% it works out okay, but that's my thing. I like to have them paid and feel comfortable. I feel I get more out of them when you do that.
But let's be honest, that sets you apart from a decent percentage of the promoters out there.
For sure.
Because some of the promoters they do not have enough cash in hand to do that.
Oh,
They're relying on day of sales to pay the talent.
Right. That's scary. You shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't be booking someone that you could you get a hurricane, you get a blizzard, no one could show up. You shouldn't be booking a talent that you're not able to pay. Thinking that no one comes. You have always got to think of the worst. You should be able. You can't go into something that you can't afford.
So do you ever feel like, because you kind of alluded to this before, that you've had Hulk, you've had Flair, you've had Brett, you've had the Outsiders, you have Paul Heyman, you have Stacy Keibler, you've had all these names that are tip top of the industry. Do you ever feel like, making the shows better at some point just becomes impossible? It becomes more and more difficult? Like, how do you,
I feel that every show. And it somehow, somebody else pops up, or somebody gets released, or somebody comes out of the woodwork. But I'm working on November, and I was supposed to have this one here at this show, when it looks like it's going to happen in November. So I'll be in good shape for November.
Do you think, because this is something we talked about with Ken, that the economics of wrestling are so different today from what they were even 10 years ago? I saw something that like Roman Reigns made something like $40 million last year, which is just unheard of money, even in the peak Austin era, in the peak Hogan. Hogan was never making that kind of money. And so like today's current main eventers, are not going to have to do signings the way that Hulk and Warrior, and Brett, they have FU money, for lack of a better term,
Yeah.
Does that concern you as far as the health and longevity of the business?
Absolutely. These guys getting paid so much, they don't need to come out to autograph signing. No less are they going to, so it's going to be a dying, business, eventually, because like you said, Roman Reigns, these guys aren't going to come out to a signing to sign their name, or even the lower guys, like Randy Orton. These guys are millionaires. They're not going to, and the fee that they want, if you could get, like a Brutus Beefcake to come out, the guy, he needs money. He needs money. He's going to come out. But after that, like these guys, after that breed, it's going to be difficult to get to afford to pay these guys to come out. So it definitely is going to be challenging to have.
Well, yeah, when the lowest of the low, and this is not meant to disparage them, but when the lowest of the low AEW, undercard are guaranteed 6-figure contracts, they even want a few thousand to come out, and they're not making back a few thousand for these people. Right. It's not happening, The
prices that everybody's asking is insane. It's just going up and up and up. It makes it very difficult.
How do you cope with that, though, as someone who's trying to sell on the secondary market? Because it's a lot of these people, because we've talked to enough of them, the wrestlers especially, they have but even some of the Hollywood people too, they have a very inflated view of what their secondary market value is worth.
Oh, absolutely.
So do you have to talk and to kind of bring them down to earth when you're trying to arrive at a price? And you'd say, listen, I know you think that I'm going to sell these for $100 a piece on eBay. The reality is we're going to probably get $25 a pop.
Yeah.
Is that a conversation that you have to have, or?
A roundabout, but you got to, you tell them, the first couple ones are going to go high, and then, and then it's going to go lower and lower, so, you got to, word it the right way. But,
so is this why you are, sort of injecting pop culture, UFC, different things into the big event?
Right. I could have other avenues to bring in, like I have Rampage Jackson, has a little bit of wrestling, in there, big UFC name, actor. He's selling great, so if I could start bringing more UFC, some more celebrities, that's why I was trying to make it like an expo where I'm able to, offset it for the lack of wrestlers that, that a rare, that I could make it, almost like a Comic-Con style.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I do think that for whatever reason, boxers and UFC fighters or MMA fighters are just they're not brought out enough, I guess is the right way of saying it, because like I bet I popped when I saw Rampage got announced because I was like, damn, why isn't Rampage doing all these things? He's going to draw.
He's a no-brainer, it seems.
Yeah, no, he's doing very well with sales and people are very excited. I got a lot of mail order on him. He just I've been reaching out to him for a couple of years. He had no interest to come out, and this one he's actually coming out because Riddick Bowe's coming. And
I was Riddick Bowe there too. It's funny because my first big event was because my dad saw that you were bringing in Vito Anafirmo, and he was advertised. And my dad trained, 50 years ago, actually trained with Vito in the boxing gym. And so he wanted me to take him to the show to meet Vito. This was how many years ago it was, but it kind of draws in people who otherwise wouldn't come, I guess.
Yeah, no, and it creates a whole nother market. I had brought in like some Mets players, and I see people coming. They were just coming, just to meet the baseball players, just to meet different actors and stuff. So, eventually that's where I'm going. I'm going to go into like a whole Comic-Con, style where it's going to be actors, UFC, boxers, baseball players, wrestlers.
And so you think that this kind of diversification is basically necessary to maintain the long-term health of the business?
I think so. I mean, it's just, like I said, you guys know, it's hard to get any talent that hasn't been all over the place, to make it a draw to people to come. I got people flying in from all over the country to come to this show, because they want to meet somebody that hasn't done something, in a while. So, like Stacy Keibler, she has done it. People coming from Australia, Japan, UK.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Yeah, and she probably ain't gonna do another one,
I think the last one she did before this was in 2009 or something. It's a really long time ago.
Yeah, it was 2008 or 2009.
What? Yeah, she said she hasn't done in like 20 years.
It was either 2008 or 2009, and I remember the Blaustein. Do you know Jason Blaustein?
Yeah.
Yeah, Jason brought her out and way overpaid for the time. That I remember some crazy number even back then.
Yeah, he overpaid and undercharged, like the Blaustein special.
At that show where he brought in Stacy Keibler, hand to God, he brought in Bill Goldberg and was charging $30 an item.
No, you mixed up the shows. Stacy was in New Jersey, Super Mega Show with Test and a couple other people's. Goldberg was PA.
Well,
that was 2 months before.
Same concept.
That setting the price of a talent is very difficult when you're paying them, so much, and you only have limited time, and you don't want to, gouge on the customer. It's very challenging to try to figure it all out. So
it's funny because there was a talent. We were talking to a vendor, and he was offered a talent at $6,000. And he's debating, well, what do I even, do I do this? What do I charge? And I'm like, at $6,000, you'd have to get. Think about this. You'd have to get 100 people through the line to pay $60 just to break even on the fee.
And that's not even counting transportation and all the incidentals.
Right. I always do the math, which is I have a little trick of how I do it. Is if I have them contracted for 6 hours. It's 60 minutes in an hour, so I have them for 360 minutes, and you guys know that you're not getting one through a minute. You have somebody that's telling a story. You have a wrestler come talk to them. So you figure for in 6 hours, you're only going to be able to see minimum of 360 people if you're flying. So if you times that times $100. $100 a minute, that's only $36,000. So, and you're paying somebody six figures, that you got to really figure out how you're going to do it on the back end.
And so, it's funny because there are some vendors, I'm sure who they still in this day and age do not really work the back end very hard at all. And I don't understand how the economics of that work.
Yeah, no, I like with Stacy, High Spots took a lot of stuff, and I had a lot of people, had mail in a lot of cards. I had a lot of mail-ins, so I made it work. She was a 4,000 piece deal, and she didn't know what she was getting into. She just saw the number, and she just saw the number and wanted to do it. I had to fly out to Austin, a month later to finish the deal. We were there to 8:30 at night, and we were only at 2,200 pieces. She would have been there for 2 days. So I had to fly back out to Austin and finish the deal. What she did, and she finished everything. So
does that make you sweat a little bit?
Oh yeah. And I had High Spots set up all there with all his mail order, and it didn't get done, and he has to pack it all up and fly it to Austin. I mean, it makes it very difficult.
Yeah, I guess that's how it goes. When you the bottom line is, I guess the truth of it is, you're only able to offer someone like Stacy Keibler a deal that makes sense if you're doing 4,000 pieces, right? Or something of that number.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I did the same thing with Heyman, and Paul was actually so he was so cool. We were speaking on the phone. He's like, Tom, I'm not going to do any of your back stuff. He's like, you're going to come to my house and you set up, and we'll spend the day, and I'll knock out all your. So I got nothing done. The private stuff of Heyman the day of. It was just all public. A few people got stuff done that I had to get done, but. Maybe a couple hundred pieces, but I finished it. We wanted to finish it in a hotel, the week after.
Which I guess it makes sense because just you want to. I mean, I guess the point is though, you're not going to trust every talent to do something like that.
Yeah.
No, absolutely not. But when you put it in the contract that they got to do a certain amount, and Paul's been around forever. The guy's a total gentleman. He on it.
But I guess that's one of the benefits of having agents in the game, though, is that in a way they can sort of keep the talent more rigidly adhering to the agreed upon terms, as opposed to that the old Carney thing. We didn't agree, that kind of thing. Yeah, I didn't say that.
That was the benefit of the agent, because you'd rather talk to like when I'm bringing out somebody, you'd rather talk to me than go talk to Paul Wight, telling them, you need to stay another hour. I got to go there and say, Paul, we got to stay another hour, and, we got to finish this, and, this is what we agreed upon. So there is benefits, of having the agent there and
yeah,
depending on, how they act and how they execute.
Sorry, go ahead, Dana.
Is 4,000 pieces is that the sweet spot, or as far as units? Is that like where you try to settle, or what's the highest unit count you've ever
I mean, no, it's all different. And, if they want a certain number, that then you gotta figure out what you got to be into it for, where you're able to make money.
That makes sense.
How do you deal with, because we've run into this on a much smaller scale than you? How do you deal with the fact that certain talents want to be paid off the books, and your sales are on the books? Your sales are on eBay or through other channels where you're accepting credit cards. They're on the books. That has to, do you ever I imagine most of your deals with talents are 1099 on the books kind of deals, right?
Yeah. I mean, the bigger town, everybody, some guys want cash, but for the most part, wiring the money or writing them a check.
Yeah, because I was trying to explain that to a talent once, where it's no, you got to take 30% right away, because if I'm collecting, this tax, I have to pay tax on this. You're not getting tax on this. I got to pay
all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
So at some point,
it's all reported income. You got to.
Exactly.
It's another point of negotiation with these people. So where do you see, because you were talking about the changing face of the cons and stuff like that, where do you see the con business in the next 5 or 10 years? Do you think we're accelerating rapidly towards the end of the wrestling con looking the way it looks now, or do you think we can squeeze a few more years out of it?
I think we'll get a couple more years out of it. The WWE releases the talent, and some of them that weren't getting paid so much. I just took over Daria Ray, Sonya Deville. She's a fresh name, whatever. So I was able to work a deal out with her where it's reasonable, and I think she'll be a fresh face out there for the next year or so. And it will continue to do that until without doing the big names. But I think we'll be able to squeeze a couple more years out of it,
as long as the marquee guys stay alive long enough to for that to happen.
Trying to get Hogan there, so we'll working on that one.
I mean, truthfully, here's the problem, and this is something that Hogan is such an interesting one numbers wise, especially when first of all, you look at how much is already on the market, right? So
right.
What Hogan is charging wholesale now is higher than a lot of times what you can get for his stuff retail, because there's so much backstock that's been sitting on the market for the past decade when he was cheap.
Right.
And now that he's, he's floating, obviously the kinds of numbers that we would be offering are nowhere near what you'd be offering, but he's offering people wholesale deals where it's, close to $100 an item. And you're like, I can't pay you $100 an item. I can't even get $100 an item for what, for this stuff on the secondary market. So
it'd be suicide.
Yeah, no, I went out to the beach shop and did a bunch of private signings with him. Yeah, and that's what it is. It's it's $100 an item. That's what he charges. And if you get it on the right items, you can make it work. But but if you have that public money coming in and you lower what you're into it for, then you might be okay.
Right. I mean, it's one of those things that unfortunately, or as fortunately for him, ever since he got the Gawker money, his price just went through the roof. He doesn't need to come out as often.
Yeah. He needs a private plane. He's a hard time walking. So that's another big expense of bringing him out. He needs a private plane to come out. So.
And especially now they have him with the Legends thing, so he'll do their stuff. He does the Fanatics stuff. So, and that's all a whole different deal. So it makes it less of an incentive for him to do it. No, it's tough. Any other names that you're looking at where you're like, pie in the sky, I'm going to shoot my shot and try and make this happen?
Well, there was a guy I was supposed to have this one, and I think I got on the next one, but I don't want to release it. But
you will sure it'll be big.
And I'm sure. Look, we're never. There's certain names, I guess, that will just never. I hate using the word never, but like a Brock or something like that is never coming out, right?
Brock is not coming out. I've tried with crazy amount of money, and he is never coming out. So
I don't think he needs it or wants it or has any interest in it.
I have no interest in doing it.
And I imagine it's the same for Mrs. Brock.
Yep. That's a tough one. Everybody's been working on her, and she just wants no part of it.
Yeah, and it's a shame because of that era, they're pretty much the last ones left who haven't done anything. Yeah, everyone's done something, and they're kind of the last holdouts. So,
yeah.
All right. So I think that's all we got.
Yeah.
I am really looking forward to the big event.
Same.
Was it 2-3 weeks? What is it now? It's what is today?
It's 3 weeks. It's 3 weeks away. It feels like it. I thought I had more time than I did. So I've been just ordering photos and order banners, and there's so many things trying to check off, but try to you don't forget anything. But it's 3 weeks away.
Do you do this? How big is your team for a show like the big event? Is it your family, or do you hire people? How big is your team?
My family helps me tremendously. We're like most of the family. My kids come out. My mother comes out. My mother-in-law, my sister-in-laws. They're a huge help. When somebody that you could trust, when there's so much cash going around, you need so many eyes. And, so I literally bring my entire family out for these kind of shows. And it makes it better for me, be that I'm a family business, because they care, what I look like, and you don't have some random guy that you hired that doesn't really care. It's my family my family members at every table, that making sure that, but hopefully, you always have the situations where somebody walks away unhappy, but they try to make everybody, walk away happy, so it's a key. We're a family business, so that's why I feel like that I'm successful. That I make sure that I have the right people in the right spots.
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to a big event. Tenzon in particular. I'm not gonna lie, I'm very excited about this. I'm actually I'm in the process of kind of unframing my NWO poster, so you're gonna see me walking around with this like half matted gigantic thing. But I gotta be there for. I gotta tell you, I can't wrap my head around that's even happening. Very excited. And by the way, I know there's no money in it for you, but Akira and Masa Saito. I think they're retired, so I mean, maybe they'll come for no money just to a vacation in a Suffolk County for a couple days.
Yeah.
I don't know, but all kidding aside, I'm looking forward to the show. It's always a good time.
Absolutely right.
The new venue. I mean, I love it. Like, granted, we're both from Long Island, so for us, it's like not the greatest thing ever. You know,
it's 20 minutes away from me, but I would love it even if it was an hour and 20 minutes.
Talk to the people in Queens. Tell them they're like, oh my god, I got to drive an hour.
You know what? They still come. They still show up at the end of the day.
Show up, yeah. And you pull right up and get a parking spot. Like
it's
get the ticket,
clean,
barcode.
But it's clean. It's safe. It's right off a main highway. It's as easy to get to as you can possibly get to. So there's a lot of. It's right near the train station. There's really no.
It's the perfect venue. It really is.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate that, guys. Thank you.
So I'm very much looking forward to it. Wishing you much continued success on it. I mean, it's always a good time, for us. So thank you so much for
thank you, Tom,
coming on.
Thank you, guys.
And we're just gonna disconnect you now and then finish our wrap up.
Okay, see you guys in 2 weeks.
See you in a couple weeks. All right.
In a few weeks, man.
All right, bye-bye.
Yeah. So what do you think?
I mean, I think as far as vendors and promoters go, you're talking about the guy who's playing like the most high stakes games around. I mean, he floated 6-figure numbers. He's got, multi-$1,000 piece counts when the average vendor is struggling to get a guarantee of 100 pieces. I think it was honestly a glimpse into the game from a perspective that honestly it's his and his alone. There's not many people operating on his scale. I thought it was a great, really great look. I think that's the biggest takeaway from this is that we're really not even playing the same game. When he's doing deals that are thousands and thousands of pieces, it stands to reason. And I didn't want to get into because he already talked about the difference between doing a cut, a 10% cut versus doing the guarantee. And I didn't want to belabor it, but there are some people who are, some of the 10%ers are a little bit bitter that Tom steals their guests by offering guarantees, And I think it's really interesting, though, to hear it from, I've only heard it from their perspective, and to hear it from his perspective where he's getting a real value out of that because he's really not even thinking about the appearance for its own sake, but also the pieces that come with it. Yeah, I think when you hear the 10%ers complaints, it's the same thing you hear when the little mom and pop shops are sort of pushed out of business by a Target or an Amazon that just does it bigger and better. And I can sympathize with the smaller businesses, but at the end of the day, the point of these conventions would be, I think, first off, for the talent to get paid, because the talent wasn't trying to get paid, they wouldn't come, and there would be no convention to have. And then second, for the fans to have the opportunity and the access to the talent. And if somehow the vendor that chooses to do things with the 10% piece of the pie gets pushed out or they get pushed aside, well, too bad. It's not really. That's just the way it goes.
And I'm not gonna lie, there is a part of me that is really. I thought it was really funny just picturing Stacy Keibler trying to sign 4,000 items.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like he said, she was more focused on the number of
dollars,
dollars, not of that other number was kind of just you just push that to the side and figure you'll deal with it when you deal with it. Because
it's just so funny for me because I'm just when we do our 100 piece counts or 150 piece counts, you have these big stacks and they're unwieldy. Doing 4,000, I couldn't even keeping it all straight and keeping it all in the boxes at that. Now I know why Tom has to rent a warehouse, because doing that kind of volume is pretty incredible.
Yeah, and you can, and we've seen and we've discussed, and I'm not going to bring up any names now because I'm not trying to make fun of anyone, but we've seen how slow some people are on the 100 pieces, and you just imagine, all right, another 3,900 to go, pal, keep going. Like,
it's really funny. It's really funny putting it that really honestly that figure, that number put things in perspective for me in a way that was very helpful. It helps me really understand what's going on here. And what Tom's business is really, as he said. I mean, he said it perfectly. His business is selling autographs, not necessarily just booking appearances. And I do think it's funny. It's interesting because from his perspective, and this is something he brought up, that he uses the ticket gate basically to absorb some of the losses from the talent. You know what I mean? So. That's an interesting way of doing it. I didn't even really think about it in that way. That there's a very big difference between running the whole show versus just being a vendor in that regard. You're able to get, because all the vendor fees, all the door money helps to offset the talent costs. So I thought it was fascinating.
Yeah. And hearing all that, I speak for me, and you feel free to disagree or agree. I think I'm very happy and comfortable with Tom handling the whole show running aspect of this. This is hearing all that. That's nothing I ever want to dip my toe into. I'll tell you that much.
Well, it's actually funny because I'll reveal this, but you and I had a conversation in the car a few weeks ago when we were talking about the future of marked out collectibles and how far we want to expand and what expanding looks like. And if you remember, what I said was, Tom Unger just rented a warehouse. Do you envision in your future running a retail operation that involves a warehouse and employees and stuff? And you said no. And I said that me either. And that basically kind of shows what, and I think I'm speaking for myself, but I think you agree. I'm interested in now finding, scouting, and executing on unknown talent or brand new talent. That is interesting to me.
Yeah. Although I will say a warehouse would be kind of cool just to have a place to store all our VSK autographs.
Oh, geez, leave Vinny alone. Hey, look, he was delightful. He came to work. It's just for whatever reason it's not selling. So yeah. If anyone wants a VSK autograph, we do have them available.
We'll actually include one for 1 week only. We will include a VSK autograph with each purchase of Maria's vagina in metallic form.
Oh, well, we did. We sold the Maria's vagina the other day.
I know, but it's only this week, Palace, and the promotion wasn't going on then. No VSK for you. But.
We absolutely need more people. And there have to be more people out there who want metallic photos, autograph photos of Maria's vagina. I mean, it's not just her vagina; it's her whole body. Her vagina is just visible in the. It's like a close up.
All right, sign over the labia. Come on.
All kidding aside. We thought this was a good idea. Because
I think it might be at the end of the day. It might be at the end of the day.
The Playboy sold well. It sold well. We thought. Yeah. I don't know, but we do have a decent inventory of these. So if this is desirable to you at all, yeah, God, oh man, I didn't expect to laugh that hard. So anyway, what do we have coming up? So we finally have Brad Baylor coming in this week. Hundos, right?
Yeah, hundos all around.
And honestly, via our contact, we'll get to that in a sec. But we have this month, I guess we'll call it February, March. We got Brad Baylor coming in this week. Monster Mania, you finalized your plans, right?
I didn't buy anything, but I'm going. I mean, unless Tobin Bell dies, which honestly would kind of be a relief, but I'm hoping he doesn't. If Tobin Bell is alive, I will be at Monster Mania just for a very, very quick surgical hit for the photo op, and then I'll leave.
Yeah, the notes that I have here, you're going to hit and quit Monster Mania. It's going to be a surgical strike if you will.
Absolutely
get in,
right.
Tobin Pro Op and get out, which I respect. And then big event. We just added we added some Sonia Deville. We're doing some pre-orders for her, right?
Yeah, we got prints. We got mail orders open for for the public. We're ready to rock and roll. As Tom just said, she's fresh, hot off the presses, brand new release. Honestly, I didn't even think her 90 days was going to line up for this show. But I'm not a math major. I guess the 90 days did hit, and
you're going to be a big event all day.
Oh yeah,
I'm gonna roll in later. Right, I've been working over my schedule for that day, so I think I will be at that show by 12 or 12:30. So, which is not that bad. That's not that bad.
Last big event, I think Brian and I rolled up. When we rolled up, I believe it was just like Tom, Mike from High Spots, and there weren't many others. We were super early, and I'm sure I'll be just as early this time.
I'll be there with my Tenzon stuff, and I think I'm going to have to do a Quentin Jackson op. I got to see what he looks like now. If he still looks like Rampage, then I'll get the op. That'll be a game day decision. But
I have a hat and shades on.
Listen, I don't want to. Hopefully, I don't have to squat next to him while he's sitting at the table.
Oh, Edie Brickle, don't do it.
I know that's a reference from the past.
Yeah.
Speaking of which,
Subway sandwiches.
Before we go and get into the end shtick, I gotta bring this up. You ran into last night a legend from Marked Out Past.
I did. I was at
NYWC.
NYWC. I forgot the letters. Yes, I was at NYWC.
In Deer Park, right?
Yep. My friend and chiropractor actually wrestled in FCW and WWE and TNA, and I messed up my neck. I was in there getting an adjustment, and as I'm leaving, he's like, "You want to go to Psycho Circus?" And my first question was, "What the hell's Psycho Circus?" And then he told me, and then I realized I've seen it in advertising. So yes, I was there. I was in the locker room. I was scouting talent, I guess, to make it seem a little more official than just bullshitting in the locker room. And I ran into I didn't really get a chance to talk to him because he was sort of in his front row area with a megaphone, and the megaphone didn't even seem to work. But Marked Out board member legend Indy Nut, and
so
I think
for those people who are not Marked Out members, okay. So Marked Out really was its own completely unhinged ecosystem back in the day, and these characters, these personalities emerged. Class 316 emerged, and Indy Nut emerged, and Tommy Highland emerged. These people were just these characters on the board who were fascinating people to interact with. People who I probably wouldn't otherwise interact with in my life, but for the fact that I'm involved in the same hobby and on the same board. And so Indy Nut posted what I consider to be my favorite thread of all time on Marked Out, and it was called "A Lady I Have My Eye On." Why I remember this is 15 years ago, and I still remember this because it was about how he was sitting in the crowd at an indie show, and there was a young lady across the somewhere in the stands that he would look at and long for and pine over while he would be staring at her all the time. And he wrote these very long missives about how he liked her, but he was too embarrassed to ask her out. And it was this whole thing. And it was so wild to read that you and I argued about this. I thought it was a put on. I thought it was some performance art thing of someone posting these things to the board because it was so eloquent and poetic and kind of beautiful. How sad it was. It was just so sad how he was crippled by his inability to speak to her, and it was all in the context of at a wrestling show, which are clearly the place that people should be going to meet their significant others of their wildest dreams. And so it was one of those things where I really thought that this thread was a put on. And so, but people were really taking it seriously. So some people would make fun of him. Some people would offer him sincere advice. And I thought this was the funniest thing. And this thread went on for years. The thread was going for years because he would dip in and out of the boards. He would disappear for a few months. Then he would come back and give us an update. And then it was this whole thing. It went on for years. And when there was an Indy Nut appearance on the board, it made me really happy. But I always thought it was performance art. I didn't think it was real. And then one day you said that you saw him and confirmed that it was real, that it was not performance art.
Yeah, I mean, even just seeing him yesterday function at the guardrail, I'm not trying to disparage him in any way, but you could tell everything we read was he was the real deal. He had like an entire posse of people. The woman he was sitting next to kind of looked like the woman he was mentioning. Although, I mean, I couldn't even remember the letters of the NYWC. So, I mean, from last night. So who the hell knows how good my memory is? But it looked close enough to what I would have remembered her being. So maybe there was a happy ending. Maybe there's a Mrs. Indy Nut. Maybe some assorted
could you
Indy
imagine?
Nut coming.
Could you imagine though? Could you imagine if it all worked out? He ended up like talking to and marrying the girl who was the lady who caught his eye, and then we never got that closure on the board. That would be like deeply unsatisfying. So Indy Nut, if you're out there, come back to the board or at least join the Facebook group and like let us know. Check in what happened, because I loved those posts. I thought they were so fascinating and such like a really interesting look at the just the psyche and the honestly the whole, it's like this anthropological study of how people at wrestling shows function. It was so interesting. He is my favorite marked out poster. He's in the marked out Hall of Fame for sure. I love that thread. I will go down. That is my favorite thread of all time. I think we have it archived, that particular thread, because it's so good.
You can't put him over. You can't put him over Big Blue.
Oh, it's no comparison. And I like Big Blue. I like Big Blue. But I forgot about Big Blue as a character. But Indy Nut, because Indy Nut was so eloquent and so poetic in his despair over the human condition. It struck me as so meaningful. I can't tell. It is the funniest thing to think that this is now over a decade ago that this was happening, and you see this guy at an indie show and he's still doing his thing. God bless you, Indy Nut. I need you to know how much you are appreciated for your contributions to marked out history. You are a legend. I would love to speak to Indy Nut. Indy Nut, reach out if you can.
Indy Nut, go to the next PWJ show. Go to the Pro Wrestling Junkie show. It is an indie show.
Hang out with us. Yes.
Yeah. Come sit at the table with us.
We'll be there. That's in July. Hang out with us. If you need a ride, Dana will take you. Oh my God. So anyway, if you're shopping for autographs, check out www.markedoutcollectibles.com or our eBay store at Marked Out Collectibles. To contact us for any reason, please email markedoutcollectibles@gmail.com or join the Marked Out Collectibles official marketplace on Facebook. So we have a couple of private signings coming up. We're doing, like I said, Brad Baylor this week. Orders are done. You can no longer order. Hundos, sorry, you missed out. You want to order them again, they're going to be more expensive. Sorry. From Brad. I'm very excited for that to be happening. We also, Sam Holloway is next month. And we also recently, today or yesterday, right? We just locked up
Ricky Smokes, the Smoke Show himself, the second half of Swipe Right with Brad Baylor. That will be next month.
Is that our, what number is Ricky Smokes? Is that our 8th or our 7th ID talent?
I think 8.
So that's we got to go back and add them all up and count them all. But yeah, our goal is to get them all. And so, and it's funny because on the last show I had put out a request that if anyone knows of any ID bookings in the area, please let us know. Someone graciously did. It was a little bit further away than we could make work.
And it was a bad weekend for us as well. So it was a double snake bite.
Yeah, it was a double whammy. That's what happens. We're booking our weekends out so far in advance. But if anyone knows anything in the future, I mean, we are able to book. We're able to work with Ricky Smokes because a local promotion is bringing him in. So if you know of any local promotions, again, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, who are bringing in ID talent, please let us know. In the upcoming months, we want to get the whole roster in. I have a lot to say about ID. I think maybe we should do a show on this in the next week or two about what this program is starting to look like, and it's so interesting to me. Honestly, meeting with these kids so far has been super interesting, and I'm super excited to see what they do. But anyway, I'm blabbing now. We have Brad Baylor, we have Sam Holloway, and now Ricky Smokes. And then we also have the big event stuff happening.
Yeah, we got Mercedes Monet or Sasha Banks, however you want to refer to her as. We have prints that sort of represent both eras. We are taking mail order on just about either character's items. Get those in. The sales have been picking up. We have Lita, the great Kali, who's coming all the way from India. We have Titus O'Neil and Darren Young. We have Sean's favorite wrestler of all time, Tenzan. We have the Nature Boy Ric Flair, which we had a bunch of big sales this week. And guess what I did? I spent more money on my own stuff. So as I promised, there will be not a single single penny of profit. If I made 10 grand, I'd spend 11. So just keep them coming. I'll keep them coming on my end, and we'll make Ric Flair and Fitterman a lot richer. And after that, we also have Sonia Deville, and I forget what her new name is, but it doesn't really matter. She is Sonia Deville for our intents and purposes. We have Prince. We're taking mail order, but keep in mind the time is whittling down. So if you got stuff, mail it to us. Payment can come after, as long as the show hasn't happened yet. Just get the stuff in the mail, because that's the problem. If it's not in our hands, we can't do anything with it. You could pay us the night before. If we had the item for the last week, it wouldn't really matter. But just get the stuff out, get the orders placed before the window closes.
Awesome. All right. So I got to get off this thing, and I got to actually edit this episode and make sure it goes up. So for markedout.com, Marked Out Collectibles, and Marked Out Radio, I'm Sean.
I'm Dana.
And we will see you next week.